Alex, good morning.
Morning.
So today's topic that I wanted to discuss is, I think, quite common, but to keep a long question short, I want to know your thoughts on the concept of filling your own cup or being the best version of yourself. You
Mm.
know, what are some of the things you do in your life to make sure that your cup is always full, or to make sure that you're being the best version of yourself all the time?
Mm. So, in my mind, I look at filling my own cup first as building my resources before spending it. It's like I think the full phrase that you normally use is fill your own cup first before you fill the cups of others, right? And I look at it as like the stronger you are and the more resource rich you are, the better your ability to help other people. So that's the why, right? And then the what, like, what do I do to fill up my own cup? Everyone's different. For me, I am a person who recharges his batteries in isolation. So that means me being in my flat, reading, thinking, meditating, resting. But I also charge my batteries with places and people. So, going to the gym and being around people that are motivated and getting after it, and then doing that myself and recreating it. And also speaking to people that inspire me. That always gives me a lot of energy. And also, I guess I know I mentioned reading, but I'll use this as well as like listening to certain people speak, reading certain people's words, getting exposure to their energy through those vehicles. That fills up my cup, you know. Um,
Mm.
if anything else comes to mind, I'll share it, but I'm gonna go to you. Like, what would
For
you do to
sure.
fill up your cup?
For sure. So, I mean, I like what you said there, right? Like the why behind keeping your cup full is so that you can not only be a resource to yourself, but a resource to other people, right? Because I think one of the joys of life is being able to help others,
Absolutely.
and for me, how I fill my own cup is by, doing activities that charge me, like you said, right? And above all, making sure that I never burn out. So I think one of the greatest ways to make sure that your cup is always full is also understanding like when your cup goes below that halfway point,
Great point.
because that is almost like the signal where you now tell yourself I need to retreat or I need to do something that's going to recharge me because I mean you can't do everything at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Like human beings need to do one activity at a time to be absolutely optimal at what you're doing.
Mm.
And that includes rest, you know, that includes charging. I mean, I'll use the concept of a cell phone. If you put the cell phone on the charger and leave it alone, it charges faster, right? As opposed to if you put the phone on the charger and use it at the same time,
Yes.
you know? So I think it's about understanding yourself in that manner, right? And then when you get to that halfway, half cup point, treating the situation accordingly.
Yeah.
And I think the better you are at doing that, the more your cup always feels full because your recharging process is a lot quicker,
Yeah.
And on the contrary of that, I think you're also able to sometimes when you do it so long and you kind of like we spoke about the last time, when you find better life hacks, you
Mm.
know, you actually can get to a point where you are recharging and filling someone else's cup at the same time, you know? And I
Yeah.
mean, I'll use a very good example, like going to gym is something that's recharging, but going to gym with someone you're mentoring is
Sure.
recharging yourself and filling someone else's cup, you know? Um, Going out for lunch
Mm.
or for drinks with friends
Yeah.
is also another way of filling up your own cup and filling up the cup of others at the same time. So I think it's dependent upon how you look at it, but I do think a certain level of skill is required to get to the latter example that I provided, because I do think recharging is something that you need to consciously do.
Yes.
You need to make the decision to recharge. And I think when you are recharged, then your cup is properly full. So yeah, that's just my take on it. And with that being said, I wanted to ask you about, some examples in your life where you maybe perhaps felt like your cup was empty, and what were the consequences of having, an empty cup?
Mm, that's a great question. Uh, I think it's good to understand these because they also help you read yourself better and understand when your battery is low. You
For
can
sure.
look for the signs. For me, when my cup is drained, generally I become more irritable and my patience is less forgiving. Um, I look at it as a push-pull type experience where when my cup is full, I feel like I'm being pulled towards doing things. But when my cup is empty, I feel like I have to push myself the whole time.
Mm,
And
mm,
everything becomes, it's like friction. There's this friction to things, into
for
life.
sure. For sure.
So, I
For
mean,
sure.
that is a great sign to me that it's like, oh, okay, my cup's empty. I need to take a step back. And then normally what I do is writing. Writing is a big tool for me just to get clarity about, okay, so how do I feel? What's making me feel this way? And what do I know I must do to correct this and to address this? And that's just the way my brain works. That's how I think.
Mm, 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 mm. I like that. And I mean, they always say, like, how do you know what full is if you don't know what empty is, right?
Mm,
Because I think a lot of the time, because of, I think, access to knowledge, and I mean, some people become sober-minded or conscious, at a very early stage in life, whereby they're groomed into routine practices that help them identify what they think a full battery is. So you get people who've been perfectionists their whole life, right? Um, but I think, one of the side effects of knowing what thinking you know what a full battery is that you're not able to derive how you are when it's empty, because there will come a point in your life when it gets empty, right? Be it in your professional life, be it in your social life, be it in your relationship, be it with your health,
yeah.
right? And I think it's about knowing rock bottom that you can really maximize and maybe even increase the overall capacity of your battery, right? Because you can also make it bigger
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
think about it, right? Like, the beautiful thing about being a human being is that, like, your battery size is not fixed.
Yes.
Like, you
Grow.
can recharge it to full, and then you can charge it past full and actually grow the battery, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the great quests of life is like, how do you increase your stamina? How do you increase your ability to uh have your battery deplete slower, if I'm gonna say that, right? Because I mean, big battery and then slow depletion rate is the same thing, right?
Sure.
But how do you get that stamina to make sure that the battery you have lasts long enough, not just for you, but for those around you? And you can only know that, like I said, once you've hit that empty tank.
That's awesome.
Uh,
That's,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, you
So
know,
that's just yeah,
I
go ahead.
want to add to what you're saying there. Like, I love this concept of building your battery.
Yeah,
And I think the way you build it is through using it. Um, that's how we differ from a phone, I guess, is that our batteries get better over time, theirs get worse.
cool.
But I wanted to add another thing that I realized I do, and I notice it in a lot of people when their batteries are running low, is that you tend to distract yourself. You look for distraction through pleasure. If you find yourself scrolling on your phone a lot, you're probably tired or you're stressed or there's something there because you're looking for distraction. And so I've kind of learned to recognize that symptom and be like, oh, okay, no, there's like pain here, or there's a fatigue, or there's something here that I'm trying to ignore.
Mm,
Let's
mm,
look at
mm.
that and see what's going on here, you know?
For sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. And I like that, right? Like you said, when your battery is low, I mean, I have some similar traits. Like, I'm easily irritable.
Mm.
Um, I distract myself. I'd rather do something that's fun
Yeah,
rather than important, you
natural.
know. Yeah, 100%. But what I also find is that sometimes you get instances in life where your battery is full, but not for the task or the occasion that you are in
Mm.
because you've never experienced it before. So, like, I'll give you a very good example. You're given a new task or you're working on a new project that you've never done before. You have this full battery. All right. That project might require two times your battery to execute on the task. And therefore, by default, your battery level is only half of what is required to actually complete that task.
That's a good way.
In situations like that, what do you do to make sure that battery actually can last the full project? We spoke about the concept of building your battery, but in that situation, like what would you do to kind of make sure that, your battery
Mm.
is sustained enough for this project that's bigger than what you have in capacity?
Well, that is such a good question. And I feel I can speak to this by giving a good example. So, in my first year of articles, there's this experience when you do a year-end audit for the first time.
Yeah,
Because a year-end audit, it's like a sprint marathon. Because you work on a big client, it's like 10 weeks in a row of working 7 days a week. And the hours are very tough and it's very stressful. And the first time you do it, it's like a guy in a race with the marathon. He races to the front of the pack at the start of the race without realizing he needs to conserve his energy. And then very soon he starts to dip and flag behind the others because of that sprint, you
for
know.
sure, for
And
sure.
that's what happens with a lot of first year guys in that environment. I've learned with the benefit of hindsight. There are a couple of psychological things, tools that really serve you in these situations. The one is realizing it's a marathon and not a sprint. So when you have a project that's the requirements are larger than the capacity of your battery, you have to recognize that at some point your focus will have to switch back to building your battery and recharging to give you a second wind for the rest of the journey, you know. It's like packing provisions for the journey that you're about to go
For
on,
sure, for sure, for sure,
mentally
for sure.
preparing yourself for that, and not treating it as a bad thing when your battery starts to get depleted, because that's also a psychological thing. It's like a lot of people have this thing of, oh, I should never feel tired or frustrated or irritated. And it's like, no, that's normal. It's part of the experience. When you catch it, use that information to serve you. To say, okay, I'm now 60% through this project, but my battery is at 10%.
Mm,
I need to
mm,
recharge for the rest of this journey. So let me go
mm,
play golf on a Saturday. Let me take some time. Let me say to my team, okay, guys, I know there's still more work to be done, but I need to recharge. I'm feeling the fatigue.
for sure, for
Give me
sure.
some time so I can sharpen my saw, come back, and I can chop this tree down, you know?
100%, 100%, 100%. So well said, right? Because like I said, when you know your battery is not enough for the task, the communication is essential, right?
Yes.
And like you said, looking at it like a marathon is not the right way to look at it, but looking at it as a series of short sprints might be the way to go,
Okay.
you know?
Good way of putting it.
Like you've said now, right? Like sprint, sprint, sprint.
Rest.
Then hey, I need to go play golf. I need to take a risk. Sprint, sprint, sprint.
It's a
Because at
marathon
the end
of
of the day,
sprints.
like it's still a marathon, but your battery level cannot accommodate a marathon. So the only way that you can sustain is to like sprint,
Yes.
recharge, sprint, recharge,
Yeah.
sprint, recharge. And that's the lesson that I get
Yes.
from the story that you just shared. And it's not easy to do that, right? Because it requires a certain approach as well, you know, and it also requires maturity in the sense that your sprint needs to be 100% of what you have
Mm.
because there's no use running the sprint and barely getting anything done. The progress needs to be monumental. It needs to be shifting. It needs to justify the fact that you need a break. And I think that onus sits with you. How do you make the most of the sprint and actually show value so that you can justify the need for a quick break and recharge?
And you need to
And
as well. That's the thing.
hey,
Like, you need to focus. You need
yeah,
to recognize that this task that you're embarking on demands a lot from you, which
yeah,
means you don't have capacity to do 10 other things.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, like when I was going through the experiences that I had, I was very tunnel vision orientated, and it served me well.
100%,
And it
100%.
comes at a price where you potentially neglect some other things because you don't have that much balance in that season of your life. But again, if you look at balance, it's like a seesaw, right? Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. It's
For
never
sure. For sure.
the only time it's like this is when no one's playing the game.
Mm, mm, mm,
But to
mm,
play the game,
mm,
you have to
mm,
accept that
mm.
there will be this.
And it reminds me of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Parkinson's law.
I think it means the amount of time you give to a task is the amount of time it will take to complete it, right?
Yeah, the amount of time you give to the amount of time you give to a task is equivalent to how the work will expand itself, right? So like
Correct.
sometimes understanding that trying to finish something the quickest might be your best outcome, right? And that's why I spoke about the short sprints, but maximizing every hour of the short sprint. Because sometimes the 10-hour marathon might end up being, you know, a 3-hour marathon consisting of 30 short sprints, but it's about your approach and like really maximizing every single hour and directly focusing on the task without being distracted that allows for you to decrease that time towards executing the task and also maximize your battery level overall, right? So yeah, I think the concept of filling your own cup, as we've been discussing, is one that inherently benefits you with the byproduct of benefiting others, right?
Mm.
Because I believe as you help yourself, so you help others. It's automatic,
You know what's
you
cool about
know.
it? It's like this, right? If your cup is empty all the time, not only are you not helping other people, but generally you're a burden on others.
Yeah,
So you have a responsibility to take care of yourself so that other people don't have to take care of you.
for
If you're
sure,
filling
for
your
sure,
cup, you're always looking to others to fill it for you. And the truth is,
100%.
it doesn't matter how good the people around you are, no one can fill your cup for you. They can
Mm,
not deplete you, and maybe they can help you when you are busy filling your own cup, but they can't fill it for you.
mm, mm,
So it's
mm,
on you. Like
mm,
you get to choose. Are you going to be a burden or are you going to be of service? Because being
for
a
sure,
neutral presence doesn't really exist. That's not how nature works. It's very few
100%.
things that don't impact anything around them, right?
100%, 100%. So well said. And I like that, right? Like, as much as we have discussed, filling your own cup, if battery levels are low, you can actually deplete the cups of others,
Hmm.
through being a burden. And I think that's one of the things you don't want to walk around doing, you know, because then people start to avoid you. I mean, your energy levels are low, you're more argumentative, you just don't see the bigger picture. And I think ultimately that's where complaining is derived from.
So,
People with empty cups generally complain a
okay.
lot,
Yeah.
you know, um, because I think an empty cup is equivalent to not seeing the brighter side of things and lacking perspective. And I think like when your cup is full, I always look at like when I measure my cup, I always look at my glass and with a little boat inside it, right?
Yeah.
And the boat is at the bottom of the cup if there's no water in it. But as I pour water into it, the boat
Cross.
gravitates towards the top of the cup. And I always want to be in the ship, in that little boat when the water is full, because then I can see what's over, you know? And that's kind of the lens that I use is to say when my cup is full, I can really appreciate perspective and I'm not blinded by what's only around me, but I can see further than that. So
That's very
yeah, yeah. So I think the complainers are just need to see themselves as the fact that their ship is at the bottom of the cup and you can't see anything else at that point in time.
You know, it's cool. There's this phrase where it says, the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah,
If you use that metaphor of you with your cup in the boat and the ship, the more you rise the ship in that cup, the more you can rise the ships in other people's cups as well. So
100%.
you're the
So well
tide
said.
that causes the other ships to rise, which is very cool. You
For
know,
sure. For sure.
same
For
as saying
sure.
like being a high vibration person, it's the same metaphor, that high
Yeah.
vibration.
For sure. I mean, it's energy and it's contagious, right? Like like you said, you cannot fill someone else's cup,
Yep.
but you can give them the signal. You can give them the quick boost to realize that, oh shit, this is what I need to do for my own cup, right? And a lot of time is done by influence. Like I believe, a very casual word for vibration is influence, right? And influence through action, particularly.
Mm.
So, for example, if you get into a room and you smile and you're full of energy,
Yeah.
people say that your vibration, your energy has gone into someone else. Not necessarily. The reality is that your actions and the way you're behaving has influenced someone else to try and embody that, and therefore
Yeah.
cheer up themselves. And a very good example here I'll use is a smile. When you smile first at someone and they smile back, that's influenced by smile, by action, right? We can call it vibration. It could be vibration too, you
Sure.
know, but you smile at someone, the chances of them smiling back are also high. And it's like I said, we can call it vibration, but the same thing at the end of the day. So your actions really have a big effect on the people around you, like I said, through action. And yeah, I think the better you understand all these concepts, be it through action, through influence, through vibration, through energy, the better you are able to apply them in different situations because they work differently, right?
And dude, it's such an interesting thing because, it's like if you have a good day where everyone is nice to you, the truth is it was probably you that was being nice to everybody else. And if you have a rough day where people were not being nice to you, the same also applies. They say it's like you ran into an arsehole in the morning, you ran into an arsehole. But if you ran into arseholes the whole day, you are the arsehole.
Sure, well said. Sure. Yeah, 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 for sure. So well said. It's about perspective, right? It's about how do you flip it, right? And like a
So,
lot of the time, someone's being giving you a tough time. And if you put yourself in a position whereby you refuse to accept that today is going to be tough, you can actually change that person's attitude for the
yeah,
rest of the day. And then have them go be positive to other people around, right? And I think that's the beauty of life is that you don't have to accept what you're given from an attitude perspective. You don't have to reciprocate it as well. If someone comes at you with a bad attitude, give them back good. That person might just react accordingly, right? If they don't react accordingly to you, at least to the next person, they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't need to do that. Let me be better." And there's your reward for the day. You've made a better impact on the universe in a small way, but great way too.
very well said. Very well said.
So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I just say something that popped in my brain while you were talking about walking into a room and smiling. Because I thought, when you have a good vibe and a good energy, it's kind of like being a little sun that just walks around and heats up the people around you. And the idea of that really made me happy to think of that. It's like a really cool thing to be the sun that people can warm themselves off of. That's a
For sure,
beautiful, you
for
know.
sure, for sure, for sure. And that's one of the beauties of life.
Yeah.
Um, it takes practice though, but when you realize that like just making a difference in one person's life is a joyful experience, I think that's one of the beginning like realizations of what you're supposed to do in life.
Definitely.
But yeah, that's it from my side, Alex.
That's everything for today, guys. I hope that you could take something away from this episode that served you, and we'll speak to you next time.
Cheers.